Alright, so let's continue with this. And before we actually do the colours, I want to show you something, and it's called Ambient Occlusion. And so what is Ambient Occlusion, or AO for short? It basically just gives you an extra bit of shadows, especially where you have certain elements that come into contact. And so take a look at this. Okay, so this might seem okay. Now I'm just going to close it for now. And so let's go back into the hyper shade. Dun dun dun. And ambient occlusion needs to be plugged into each material. This is the way I'll do it. A normal way to do ambient occlusion is to actually render out a separate layer and then composite it in a package like Photoshop, After Effects, whatever. But I tend to plug it in and just render it with the ambient occlusion kind of baked into the surfaces, and so it saves me from rendering out another layer and doing any compositing. And so basically, I'll just show you. So the best way is, for example, like this background here. Okay, so we've got the background material selected. Now if we go to the Arnold shader, you can see ambient occlusion. Click on it, and I tend to do AO, so we know it's ambient occlusion, and give it a name. So background, there we go. So let's go back to the background, grab the ambient occlusion and plug it into the color. So now the ambient occlusion controls the color, and by default it's white and black. And so let's take a look at it. And so highlight this window and boom, do a render. Okay, so it's the background, and we might not see too much of a difference. Just wait for it to finish rendering, and let's take a look. Now you can see a little bit already. Take a look around the feet area, especially because it comes into contact with the background. You can see a bit more shadow, you see. And that's the ambient occlusion working fine. So that's pretty good. Another thing we can do is not make it white, and so I don't know, you got light blue. That doesn't look too good. Maybe just kind of add a bit of grey to it, a bit of dullness to it. Maybe something like that. There you go. And you can see some of the blue reflected onto the character. And that's the beauty of ambient occlusion. So there you go. That's what it looks like, white. There we go. And the black doesn't have to be perfectly black. You can kick on it. Not kick on it, click on it. And what I tend to do is select the what's known as the white colour. In this case it's the mild blue, and then just crank it up and make it a bit dark, so it's not 100% black. And so there you go. So that's the background for now. We can kind of leave it at that. You can still play around with it if you want. Make it a bit darker or brighter. It's entirely up to you. Kind of like that, and just keep playing around with it. And yeah, so that's the background done. All right, okay, so not bad. We can actually save that. Click, there we go. And so what do we need to do next with the ambient occlusion? And so let's do the body, and boom, hyper shade. There we go. So Arnold Shady, ambient occlusion, AO, body. And so let's look for the body material. There we go. This is the body material. Now, I don't want to plug the AO body into the color, because this character's skin will be used. Let's take a look. We'll be using subsurface, and subsurface is a good way of rendering skin. And so what we can do is, first of all, bring the weight up to 1. So we've activated the subsurface. Then you've got subsurface color, and we can grab the AO body, middle mouse, click, drag, and drop it in the subsurface color. So again, we're going to be using the AO color channels to generate the color for the skin. There you go. And another thing we need to do, and the thing with subsurface, the whole point of subsurface means that it allows some of the light to penetrate the skin. And to have a certain level of penetration or transparency, you need to select the object that you want to use as subsurface or transparent. And in the attribute editor, where are you? Switch it back on. Go into the poly shape. Go to, I think, where are we? Render stats. No. Arnold. Can you see opaque? Switch it off. And what that means is that Maya will now allow you to use transparency or subsurface or translucency for your geometry. And so, boom, that's that bit done. Alright. So, let's take a look at what we've got now. And hit render. And you can see the ambient occlusion working now. You know, we've got more shadows in the nostrils and around the eyelids there where it comes into contact with the eyeballs. Some of the shadow underneath the hands, that's created by the hands and the feet, a bit darkened. There you go. It looks much more realistic, much more atmospheric. And we can open up the attribute editor, go to the body, and so basically, where is the subsurface? There we go. And this is basically what we're working with. Now, there's a couple of types here, and just generally random walk version 2 is the best version to use, just use that. And again, we've got the radius, which is on 100% of the minute. We can actually bring it down, and we can actually play with this later when it comes to actually using the color. And so if we click on it, so in the minute it's just white, but let's just say we wanted to color it. And so there we go, you know, it's maybe some kind of, I don't know, pink or whatnot. There you go. And so we're just basically playing around with it just to show you, but we're actually going to paint the character in a bit. So this isn't going to be the finished colour. It's just to give you a demonstration of subsurface scattering mixed with ambient occlusion. And there you have it, basically. And so, yeah, that's the difference. We can save that. And also I'm just going to delete some of these earlier images because we don't need them anymore. There we go. And so finally we just need to do the teeth and the eyes. So open up the hypershade, and where are we? Shader, ambient occlusion. So this is going to be the AO right eye. There we go. So let's find the right eye. Boom, boom. There we go. Boom. And again, we're not going to be plugging the ambient occlusion right eye directly into the color channel, and I'll tell you why is because we're going to be using a ramp node to create the little iris, and so the ramp node is actually going to be plugged into the ambient occlusion is actually going to be the ramp node. I got confused for a second there, sorry, my mind drifted because I was thinking about the teeth as well, because we're going to be using the same process for the teeth. But basically what I'm saying is the ramp nodes for the eyes and the teeth are going to be plugged into the ambient occlusion, and that's how we're going to do it. So there's no point in me just showing you the ambient occlusion demonstration for the eyes and the teeth, because you've already seen it working on the background and the body. And so basically, let's end the video here, and so for the next video we'll actually move on to actually adding colour to our character.